Welcome once again to Monday Manna. Let's just jump straight into it today. Today we're in James chapter 4, looking at verses 7 through 12. James chapter 4, looking at verses 7 through 12. Activating grace. Activating grace. Let's read these verses together today. Some of them will be very familiar to you. Those that know and study your Bible or grew up in church, you will recognize a lot of these verses today. Beginning in verse 7 in James chapter 4. Therefore submit to God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. Draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Lament and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned into mourning and your joy to gloom. Let your laughter be turned into mourning, M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G, okay? Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he will lift you up. Do not speak evil of one another. He who speaks evil of a brother and judges his brother speaks evil of the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver who is able to save and who is able to destroy. Who are you to judge one another? Wow. James, in these verses 7 through 12, he uses a series of Greek imperatives or commands to communicate 9 principles that will enable us to activate our grace. Recently, I lost my ATM card. Well, I just went by the bank and said, send me another one, and they did. Okay, that ATM card came in. All the money, whatever it was, I had in the bank, after hours did me no good because until I activated that new ATM card, it was no good. God's grace has to be activated for it to be enjoyed in your life, for it to do some good in your life, okay? So today, activate grace. Here are those 9 commands that help us to communicate God's grace and make it enjoyable and active and vibrant in our lives today. They all start with an R. In verse 7 we find 2. One is to relinquish. That means submit, give, relinquish control of your life. Starts with an R. The second one is also in verse 7. Resist. Resist the devil. So we are to relinquish control of our life and we are to resist the devil. Number 3 we find in verse 8. Restore worship to a priority. Restore worship to a priority. Cleanse your hands. Draw near to God. Restore worship to a priority. Also, in verse 8, we find the word renounce. Renounce your sinful actions. Anything you're doing wrong, renounce them. Do away with them. Submit. Cleanse. Wash yourself. In verse 9, we find react to sin with sorrow. When you do something wrong, you should be sorry for it. If you do something wrong and it doesn't bother you, you don't mourn over it, you don't grieve over it, then you have a serious problem. Number 7, refrain from a frivolous attitude toward evil. We find that in verse 9. Let's read that in verse 9. It simply says, lament and mourning, we let your laughter be turned into mourning, your joy to gloom, okay? We find in number 10, to respond humbly to success, okay? When you come to God, humble yourself. Don't come to God like, hey, look at me. No, you're nobody without God. Humble yourselves before the Lord. And number 9, refuse to slander your fellow Christians. Okay, we find that in verses 11 and 12. Very quickly, for time's sake, let me just name them one by one, the 9 principles for appropriating or activating grace in a believer's life so that he can stand in this world against this evil world. Relinquish control of your life. Resist the devil. Restore worship to a priority. Renounce your sinful actions. Reject sinful attitudes. React to sin with sorrow. Refrain from a frivolous attitude toward evil. Respond humbly to success, and refuse to slander your fellow Christian. That is how you activate God's grace in your life today. I hope you've enjoyed Monday Manna. I try my best to bring you something that'll get you through a work week, and I thank you so much for joining in every week. You don't know how much I appreciate it. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you guys next Monday. Thank you.